Coming up to down rookie already, it's time for us to make our way through the summer transfer window here in 2032 off the back of just qualifying for the Conference League with Jahn Regensburg, and already we're the favourite for a couple of big jobs. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 84 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well and come up. We're going to make our way through the summer transfer window here in 2032, currently at Jahn Regensburg. But as I said during the course of that brief intro, we are the favourite for a couple of quite big jobs. So we'll see just how things go here during the course of today's episode. If I did put money on it, I'd say we probably won't be here come the end of today's episode, but it comes off the back of the last couple of Bundesliga games we did play there in yesterday's episode, which did decide what European competition that we were going to qualify for. So if you missed those ones, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Unfortunately, the loss to Bayer Leverkusen and that draw at Gladbach, we actually didn't play too badly in either of those games, just defensively a little bit soft, especially because a good old Batata in goal did mean that we only finished 7th. Had draw line Eintracht Frankfurt helping us out there in the DFB Pokal final to make sure that we did qualify for the Conference League, which is a little bit of a step down from the Champions League last season, so a little bit of a regression. So that has played into my mind here in terms of what might happen during the course of today's episode. To be fair, the Conference League could be quite winnable, apart from the fact that a couple of years ago when we were back in that competition, Newcastle, they kind of thrashed us in the semis. So again, I'd say the teams with more money over in the Premier League might be a bit too hot for us if we are still here at Jahn Regensburg. But we're coming back here a few weeks off the back of the end of season review, because we've got our first interview offer here during the off season, albeit it's one that we're going to turn down because of the club it comes for in RB Leipzig. So for those who are actually new to our channel and haven't been watching the previous series here that we've done, the last series was called RB Kloppbot, and we spent a fair bit of time in that save at RB Leipzig. And of course, just in the save, the manager that they have sacked was good old Jurgen Klopp. Of course, in this save, it wasn't a ChatGPT version. It was actually the Jurgen Klopp in Football Manager. So to be fair, it was probably a bit more realistic. But off the back of that, and considering that we've literally used a couple of these players quite recently and won the Champions League and Bundesliga with this club, I feel like it's the one club that we don't actually want to go to in this German save. So because of that, we are going to turn down here RB Leipzig with the first job interview offer that we have had here during the course of the off-season. But we are only a couple of weeks into this off-season, and it is one where the Euros and Copa America do take place. That might delay a couple of clubs in making decisions, and also it might mean that some jobs do pop up once there might be a bit of change on the international stage as well. But if we make our way over to the job centre, you'll see that we are the favourite for a couple of other jobs. Let's start up here in the Premier League. Newcastle United, we're the favourite for that job. I've not applied, as you can see, as is usually the case here in the save, albeit I think this summer, if a Champions League quality job does come up, we've got a decent chance of picking up trophies as well. We might actually start applying for some other jobs. We'll see what happens there in terms of what does pop up. But Newcastle is one that apparently we are the favourite for. They're predicted to be the 7th best team there in the Premier League. They finished 11th, so it does mean they've got no European football in the Prem next season. So arguably a bit of a step down there from Jahn Regensburg. But of course, that's the team who knocked us out in the Conference League semis a couple of seasons ago. So maybe that would not be the worst job. We'd definitely attend an interview if they offered us one. Going down a bit further, and in the Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund, we are also the favourite for, not RB Leipzig, because we're a little bit surprised there that that job interview did pop up. Apparently, it's Jack Wilshere who is the favourite for that job. But Borussia Dortmund, just like Newcastle, they've got no European football off the back of their 9th place finish last season. But of course, the first season where we came up to the Bundesliga here with Jahn Regensburg, they waltzed away to the title by about 15 points. So with no European football, that actually might be a sneaky chance for us to go there, just focus on domestic football and pick up the Bundesliga in our first season there. So we'll see what happens there with those two jobs that apparently we are the favourite for. Borussia Dortmund, definitely a bit of a higher reputation club than Newcastle, so that might be the job that does look a little bit more enticing, albeit Newcastle might have more money be in the Premier League, and also because of their owners. So we'll see what happens there in the course of the next couple of click-throughs that I do make. No doubt we'll get interview offers from both of those clubs. But also, during yesterday's episode, if we go back to our club info, before that Bayer Leverkusen game, we were being touted as a replacement for Nico Kovac, and Leverkusen did a really good job last season. They finished in second, so definitely they have Champions League football. Unfortunately though, that job is no longer on the table because Kovac signed a contract extension, so that's a little bit of a bummer. Otherwise, we'd be holding out there for that Leverkusen job, because that would be a nice little step up there with Champions League football for next season. So currently, it looks like Dortmund and Newcastle are our moves that we could make. We'll see how the interviews go if we get them from those two clubs, which no doubt we should be coming back for shortly. And wouldn't you know, going for just one day off the back of that interview offer there from RB Leipzig, we've now got one that we want to attend, because Amanda Staveley wants us to go and see them at Newcastle United. So this might be a job here that we do want. As I mentioned, this was a team a couple of seasons ago that did beat us relatively comprehensively in that Conference League semi-final. If we got past those guys, we definitely would have picked up the final, considering who our opposition would have been. So despite the fact these guys will have no European football for next season, this could be a very good job. Obviously, facility-wise, this is all a step up from what we've got currently at Jahn Regensburg. A quick look here at what their finances do look like, and it's quite big, even better than what we saw before with RB Leipzig. So definitely going to attend this interview and see if we go to the Geordie Shore potentially and join Newcastle United in the Premier League. I suppose that's one advantage over Newcastle compared to someone like Borussia Dortmund. We won't actually need to take on our former club in Jahn Regensburg, with the fact that we've got no European football here at Newcastle. To make our way through here, this interview, no doubt most interviews will go the same, so we might just recap the other interviews that we do get quite quickly, because there might be a few depending on what else does pop up. But what do we think makes us suited to managing a club of the stature? We'll say that we've been building up experience with smaller clubs in preparation for an opportunity with a bigger club, and we would like that there. Now, while we only work with a small selection of teams so far in our career, because we've shown Lord to be fair, we've done a few interviews now here at Jahn Regensburg, and they've gone quite similarly. The club will be looking for a candidate capable of performing to competition expectations, something which apparently Patrick Vieira did not do. We've got a good record when it comes to meeting expectations. Now, let's see what he looks like. He looks okay. Honestly, the negotiating is not that great, so maybe we could upgrade on him, considering it's a Premier League club. We should have some pretty darn good staff available if we do want it. And now the recruitment process, backroom staff. Now with Newcastle, I think we'd actually want to ask here for a large budget to try and get the best staff possible when we hit the ground there in front of St. James's Park. So we'll go there with a big budget. Maybe that's not the best idea, but even when I went back last year with Real Sociedad, their budget wasn't that great, with a decent one to make those staff changes before we turn those guys down. So I think we want to go here with the large budget. Now, ball culture, attacking football, develop players using the youth system, possession football, high tempo football, lots of what we do currently with our system at Jahn Regensburg. Within the wage budget, sign players to sell for a profit again. That's what we're kind of doing there at Jahn Regensburg. These are the contract stuff, essentially. Don't give old players long-term contracts. And going down further, develop the best youth system in the country. That one might be a little bit difficult with some of the other teams in the Premier League, but we'll give it a decent shot. And also, they want us to qualify for the Europa League, and that's at the end of next season. So definitely need to get back there in European football with this Newcastle team, and eventually start getting in the Champions League quite regularly, and eventually challenge for the Premier League title. So definitely some steady steps there on our way up the ladder in English football. We'll say we're happy with those terms. Apparently no expectations, because still in the previous season here in the save going forward, and that's it. So to be fair, no mention there of any budgets, which is a little bit interesting. Would have been quite keen to see just how big that might have been there with a club like Newcastle United. But we're the favourite for that job already, and that was before we attended that interview. So fingers crossed that maybe we've done enough there to make sure we get an offer from Newcastle. No doubt in the Premier League might be a pay rise on what we've got here at Jahn Regensburg. So we'll come back and see if we get an offer there from Newcastle or an interview with Borussia Dortmund. And we've gone for the best part of 2 weeks off back there of that interview with Newcastle United. A bit of stuff to update here before we get stuck in to our next job interview. There is a second club, but it's actually one that I've applied for with. So this could be a bit interesting what's about to happen here in the save. But first up, of course, the Newcastle job that we had that interview for. Let's just give you guys an update on what's going on there. If we make our way over to the job centre and go down here just a little bit into England, you'll see that we're still the favourite, but you can't apply for that job. If we check out what's going on there with Newcastle and on their news page, let's just see if we can find it somewhere down here on the right-hand side, because I saw it before, and there it is. Diego Martinez is going to get the job over us. So unfortunately, we've bottled yet another interview in the save. The drone manager has been approached there from Newcastle. Those guys finished in 10th last season, so not too sure how he's got that job there, considering our work with Jahn Regensburg. So a bit disappointed there. We're not going to Newcastle United. And to add to that, let's go back here to the club info page and check out Borussia Dortmund here in the Bundesliga. Did not even get an interview. They've appointed Ryan Mason, which seems like all sorts of bad there from Borussia Dortmund. He's left Nice to go to Borussia Dortmund. So those two jobs that we were the favourite for, we didn't get either of them, and one of them did not even get an interview for. So that is a bit disappointing. But one job has come up. As I said, it's actually one that I've applied for the first time I've done so in the save ever since I've left Buxton, because we did apply when there for the Wellington Phoenix job. They stuck with their assistant manager for a while, so in the end, that one didn't actually matter too much, but we applied for a job here, and it is with Benfica, as you're about to see. If we go down there below that offer for Marston and finally started to do some transfer business off the back of seeing what was going on there with Newcastle United not wanting to go for us, but Benfica over in Portugal, that job is available. Now, the reason I've applied for this job is because not too sure they would actually liked us with our lack of speaking Portuguese. Also, they were at the time a 4.5-star reputation club. As the new season ticked over, they've gone down by half a star. So actually, no rise there from Jahn Regensburg. But this season, they have qualified for the Champions League, but they did finish third in the Portuguese league last season, which does mean that they'll have to make their way through once we check out here the past winners. In fact, they finished second, but they have to go through the league qualifying phase. Not quite locked in there for Champions League football, but surely a club like Benfica, they can make their way through there to the league phase of the Champions League. The 3 seasons prior, they won the league over there in Portugal. In fact, ever since the save started, really, they've been the dominant force over there in Portugal, barring the odd year here and there where Sporting or Porto have beaten them to the title. But I thought this job would actually be quite interesting. Champions League football, we don't have that at Jahn Regensburg for this season. And this job did pop up going back here to Benfica, because the RB Leipzig one, that got taken once we click the right tab here and check out managers by Louis Enrique, who departed from Benfica. So making the most here of the fact that for some reason he's left a club that should be getting titles quite regularly and gone to one that might be a bit more of a struggle there in RB Leipzig. Benfica could be a chance for us here to pick up our first trophy in the save since the Vanarama National League all the way back with Buxton. And let's just check out when that was, because it was a fair while ago now. It was back in 2026, so it's been a fair while now since we've won a trophy in the save. 6 years. So with Benfica, hopefully we can change that and maybe start to improve our reputation even more. We'll just see here how this job interview, it does go. You can see there one of the reasons they like us is we fit the highly ambitious vision for the club, because we like to play a high tempo pressing game. However, they don't like us that much because of our set pieces. Apparently don't like making those important. Arguably last season, you could say that was true the years before, though Ruslan was a dead set threat from most corners for us. So I'm not too sure about that, but let's see here how we get on in this interview, one we've actually applied for here to go to Portugal and join Benfica. A bit of an interesting move here from the German league to Portugal, but to be fair, last season their coefficient was higher than Germany's based on the club's performance in the European competitions. Actually might not be that much of a step down. Now, first up, we don't speak the language. What we'll do here is say that it's a relatively easy language to learn and we should be able to pick it up quickly. Might change our answers here a little bit to what we did with Newcastle, because it feels like what we said kind of cost us there a bit of a sure thing with the Geordie. So we'll see here if some different answers they can work once we get to some same old questions, because now, can we ease their concerns that we've never managed before in this country? Let's just say we've always been keen, but not had the opportunity. Let's hope that Benfica here might give us the chance. Now, apparently, we've never managed a club of their statutory reputation. Now, at the time I applied for this job, yes, but these days, Jahn Regensburg has the same reputation. So I think here what we might say is we've been waiting for the right opportunity to step up, and hopefully that we get that here. Now, why have we felt it acceptable to apply for a number of jobs while employed by other clubs? We've only done it a couple of times. We'll just say that on each occasion we weren't enjoying ourselves and wanted a fresh start. Apparently we're out for a few jobs. We are not, because Dortmund didn't want us and Newcastle are going with someone else. We'll just say that we're trying to forge ahead here by any means necessary. Now, apparently they need a manager who can work with limited resources. That might be a little bit of a concern. Of course, at Buxton, that was the case before the Tycoon takeover. Jahn Regensburg, it's been not that bad. We'll just say that it sounds like a challenge we're up for. That's a little bit concerning. Now, the director of football, let's just see how he looks. And to be fair, he's better than the one that we had at Newcastle. So we'll say that we're happy to work with him. And this time around, we might say we want a fair budget. That might have been costly before in that Newcastle job interview. Here's the club vision: attacking position-based football that's high tempo and makes the most of set pieces. Going down further, the usual stuff we have, but also maintain the club's stature as the most reputable team in Portugal. Hopefully that's something we can do. And again, sign those players to sell for a profit. Again, long-term contracts here for first-team players, but not for the older ones. And going down further, as you'd expect, win the Portuguese league and continue to do so. So definitely going to go here to Benfica if we get offered this job and be expected to at least compete there for the League of Portugal. Going forward further, they're targeting Champions League qualification. I think we can do better and challenge for the league. And all of a sudden, that whole financial restriction thing we got before does not seem so bad, because apparently there's a transfer budget of 76 million. So the finances, you'd imagine they can't be that bad. That seems like a very, very nice budget. The wage budget is 2.8 million. That's about 3 times what we've got currently at Jahn Regensburg, maybe slightly under. So definitely quite happy there with those budgets. So that's interesting. The transfer and wage budget there are quite big, despite the fact that apparently Benfica in a little bit of financial trouble. So not too sure about that, but we'll see how that one goes. As I said, a chance for us there to hopefully win some trophies and also end up in the Champions League for this season. And going forward a week there from that Benfica interview, the one that we applied for there, seeing is they had Champions League football, and we've got a job offer. So might be on our way here to Portugal for the first time in the save. Definitely one that we've not done before on the channel, which could be interesting. Now, of course, that transfer budget and that wage budget is pretty good. The wage they're offering us, we might need to work on that, because that's lower than what we're getting here currently at Jahn Regensburg. But apart from that, I am quite keen on this job. Definitely a chance for us here to try and pick up some trophies. As I said, it's now been 6 years since we've won anything in the safe, so definitely feel like that could help us out. Maybe take another step up to a big club if we can't win something like a Champions League or even a Europa League with this Benfica team. But definitely quite keen here to make the move to Portugal. A little bit concerned about that whole financial thing though, but with that transfer budget, it might not be too bad. But of course, you can actually see it here. The bank balance, they're about £28 million in debts. Not too sure exactly why they're giving us a transfer budget of 74 million. Maybe if we do qualify properly for the Champions League, we will be able to wipe out that deficit. So it might not be that bad if we get through those first couple of qualifying rounds there in the league path of the Champions League. They do have a loan debt of £213 million, which is also concerning. So a little bit confused why our transfer budget there, it is so big. But I think it's fair to say that this is a bit of a step up here from Jahn Regensburg, especially training facility and youth facility wise. These days, our youth recruitment and our general reputation is not too bad. And the overall value of the club actually at Jahn Regensburg is a little bit better as well as that bank balance. But I'm quite keen here to try and go to a club that might be a bit of a title contender. So I think here what we're going to do, despite the fact that you'd probably say the Bundesliga a lot higher ranked than the Portuguese league, it's a couple of spots higher. But as I said, coefficient-wise, the German league has not been doing that well. It's actually dropped down off the back of being second last season. The Serie A now the second best league here in Europe. I think I'm quite keen here to make the move to Benfica. So as long here as we actually get a pay rise on what we're getting here currently at Jahn Regensburg, let's make the move over to Portugal. Let's try and get this up here to 28k a week. It was 27.5 off the back of the negotiations we had last season when we were trying to make our way potentially to Real Sociedad, and those blokes over in Spain, they were a little bit tight. So we're trying at least here get a little bit of a pay rise, and that's what we get. So I think here we're on our way to Benfica. We definitely are now. I've clicked the button too much, but let's just make sure that we can make the move. It's time to go house hunting in Portugal. And here's the random website I've found here to look at houses in Portugal. I've got no idea if this is the best one because it's Portugal and I'm all the way over here in New Zealand. But let's see if we can afford a house there to rent in Benfica. And we definitely can. €6,500 a month there for the most expensive one. So we should be good. Apparently this one was getting constructed in 2023, so it should be quite new. Let's just see how fancy this one looks. Might even click over here and see what it does look like if we can get the screen a little bit bigger and make our way here through all these photos if that's possible. Indeed, we can. Apparently, this is the nicest place. There's a jacuzzi included in the room, so it does seem quite fancy here at this place, which looks like it's Fabrica 1921. Going forward a bit further, there's the entrance and there's the lobby, so it's a little bit here of an apartment building. It doesn't look too shabby. I thought the view here might be a bit fancier, seeing as we made the move here over to Portugal. Might get a few more views of the sea and whatnot, but so far it looks okay. There's the kitchen. That's a bit fancier. So to be fair, I'm quite liking the look of this house. Looks a little bit nicer than what I've got currently in Jahn Regensburg. Despite that big pay rise we had, couldn't really improve our housing situation there with what was an offer in Germany. But this place, it does look quite fancy. It's a bit of a view. I wouldn't say it's great, but once we make our way back up to that jacuzzi, it might be a bit nicer. Still making our way through here. Some of the 52 photos that we've got of this place that we might be staying in that shower, it looks quite nice. Even got a little bit there of a rain shower, which is quite nice right from the rooftop there. And there's a bath as well, which is very fancy. We couldn't afford that with our house. So a shower and bath, that's quite nice. Going forward further, there's an upstairs, and the upstairs, that's where it gets fancy. That is a heck of a house there that we've got to rent in Benfica. Let's just make our way through here. The rest of this gallery that we can see. That view now does look a bit better. A little bit of a garden there on the outside of this apartment complex. There it looks like is the parking garage, which is quite nice too. No need to worry about our car being stolen. Also, there's a bike station as well, so you can do all sorts here while in Portugal. There's a kids club. Not that we need to worry about that just yet with our situation in this save. There's a little bit of a mini bar there too. It looks very fancy. Once you get past the first couple of photos, a communal area with a pool table. Surely we can steal that and take that up to our room, so we get that. Also, there's a gym. This looks pretty nice, so I think we're on our way here to Benfica now that we've got our house sorted out with a nice swimming pool and all that sort of stuff. So it's time to make the move to Benfica. And here's the confirmation we've made the move from Jahn Regensburg to join Benfica over in Portugal. We did get named the German Players Manager of the Year, but that was last season for 2030-31. Didn't quite get that this season. I think we finished third, but we'll face pressure to bring immediate success there to Estadio da Luz, having stepped up from our previous standing to take sole charge. Not too sure about that. I think that just means we had an assistant manager or a DOF, which will be the same situation here at Benfica. We weren't the favourite for this job, but we got it anyway, getting some payback there on Newcastle, and we've brought over a fair few staff. As you can see, quite a few also have left Jahn Regensburg. But going forward here, let's have a quick look at what this team does look like before I try and implement my tactic and see how things will look here at Benfica. But the meta prediction is first, so expected to be the best team here in Portugal and try and make these guys a little bit of a dominant force, especially if that transfer budget is actually true. It doesn't get wiped out once they realise that they're in debt, but that budget is pretty darn big for us there with Benfica. It looks like they're suited to a 4-2-3-1, so definitely can plug in there our Buxton-based style tactic that we did have there with Jahn Regensburg, so that should suit quite nicely. There's all the club vision stuff that we did see before in the job interview. Going over to the supporter culture, they want us to finish above Porto and Sporting and just keep winning stuff, which to be fair, I'm expecting to here over at Benfica. Let's sort this stuff out and make our way into the club itself. And we are here. So a quick look at what this squad might look like in terms of quality. Here's what it is. Let's check out the reports and see what we can do. We've got Andre Lunin still there in goal, but to be fair, quite a promising youngster in behind that, and Marco Talhalda, so he might be quite decent if Lunin is a bit washed these days in 2032. To be fair, quality-wise though, this team, it looks pretty darn good. So I think what we're going to do here is I'll just plug in my tactic and make sure everything is all good and just see what we might need to do in the transfer window. With all that money that we've got to spend, it could be a busy one if there's some players here in particular. Noah Langery, I've seen him. We might need to sell him. He's getting on a little bit. The fans do like him, but that current ability doesn't look too great. So that might be someone that we can look to sell, albeit their value is not too great. But I'll just try and sort out here what the squad does look like and see if the 4-3-3 or the 4-2-3-1 might work a little bit better. And we'll come back and just try and run through what we might need to do in the transfer window before probably coming back and playing our first game in charge here in tomorrow's episode. And here's what we look like here at Benfica with our 4-2-3-1 from Jahn Regensburg loaded. As you can see, it's a decent looking team we've been able to put out here without any transfer business done. But of course, we've got a lot of money 76 million, of course, next season. That goes down, obviously, with the club being a little bit of financial trouble, so maybe should save up some of that money, but the wage budget as well, that's a lot that's spare in this squad. Looks a bit more talented than what we had back at Jahn Regensburg, so I think actually have made the right move here going over to Portugal for a team that definitely should be involved in Champions League qualification at the very least each and every season. But in goal, as I mentioned before, Andre Lunin, he's not washed yet attribute-wise. He actually looks quite good there in goal, so we're going to stick with him as our first choice. And it's a big bid. It does come in for him, even though he's 33 years old. Also, technically, we've made a couple of changes just to try and be a bit more front foot here, with a team expected to actually win the league. So with that, sweeper keeper is now on support defensively too, ball-playing defenders, because both these guys can do a decent job, as that Nihon Predators is someone else who also is a little bit old, but attribute-wise, he does look quite good. Does the 9-cap Argentinian international, is wanted by a big club there in Arsenal, but he'll win trophies here, so fingers crossed that he actually does want to stay. And also Robert Renan, he looks like a quite decent centre-back, does a Brazilian at 28 years old, so not too disappointed there with what we've got in terms of our centre-backs at right-back. Jesus Fortea, he's wanted by Barcelona, so that might be a little bit of a concern trying to keep hold of him, but again, he looks quite well suited to our wing-back on support once we put him there onto that role instead of a right winger. On the left-hand side, we've got Paulo Cesar, who's also wanted by some big clubs, including Barcelona. Again, though, looks quite nice for that wing-back on attack. So defensively, we look pretty good, but some players with not much potential. So maybe we could improve in some of these areas if those big clubs do come knocking for 3 of those players there. In our back four, now midfield, we've got a couple of quite handy players here, even though they are a little bit old. Florentino Luis, we do want to keep hold of because he is homegrown club, the vice captain, and looks quite decent as that balling midfielder on defend. Or I was kind of hoping that we could maybe switch from that role, but he does look very well suited to it. So maybe the ball-wing midfielder will stick around here at Benfica. At 32 years old, though, maybe need to try and get someone with a bit of potential, albeit Franco Devia looks quite well suited to that role and with some potential. So maybe we're really nicely sorted there in that position. Don't need to dip into the transfer window for that. Now, Frederick Ornes is wanted just like Luis is. He might be someone, though, that we look to sell because he is in the final year of his contract. But to be fair, is a very good looking player as that centre mid on support. So again, not too sure what we'll do with him. I need to talk to him and see if he does actually want to leave the club. But he looks very good attribute wise and that natural fitness, even at 36 years old, he could be quite handy to keep him around until that contract it does expire. So that midfield is a bit older, but does look quite talented at right wing. We've got Angelo. He's wanted by AC Milan. So again, we'll see what happens there during the course of the remainder of the transfer window. But he, attribute-wise, does look quite good. Definitely can notice here a bit of a step up from the players that we're able to sign there at Jahn Regensburg. Going over to the left-hand side, and Victor Hugo will start out there instead of striker, because quite a handy one we've got there who is up top, but inside forward on support. He looks very well suited to that. So Victor Hugo there as our left winger, but again, he's wanted by Newcastle. So to be fair, might be quite fun here to turn down Newcastle off the back of not getting the job offer from those guys. Central taking midfield. Now, to be fair, this might be the weak area in our squad. Yuko Amori does look decent attribute-wise in this position, but it might be one that we can improve in, hopefully in the transfer market. So we'll see what we do here, but he's a handy player attribute-wise. And behind that, Haraldson is expecting to be the first choice, but attribute-wise, not quite as good there as Kalamori. So we'll see what does happen. He's a fan favourite, so not too sure if we'll get rid of him, but he has agreed to be a regular starter, so he might get upset if we do bench him, which is looking like it might be the case because Kalamori does look a little bit there of a better player. And up front, we've got Murtaz Piskunov over Hugo. He looks like a very handy finisher, some very good yellow attributes in most areas there as an advanced forward. So first team-wise, this Benfica outfit, it does look quite good, albeit a lot of our first team players, they are wanted by some quite big clubs. Newcastle seem to want to pinch all the players from the manager that they just turned down. So not too sure if that's the smartest idea. Going over here to our squad planner, goalkeeper-wise, we look quite decent. Right back, we've got Max Johnston as a backup, maybe an area that we could improve him, but attribute-wise, he also does not look too bad. But at 28 years old, maybe could get someone in who is a little bit younger. Centre-back-wise, there's a fair bit of depth here. Abakasilla is someone that does want to leave the club. So maybe we let go there of our third choice centre back just to make sure that he does stay happy. There'll be 25 million extra that we could get into our transfer budget. Escudero, another backup option who doesn't look too bad, as does Bookman, who is in behind that, is the German. And as well as that, we do have Debier, who can do a job there as well as in defensive midfield. So to be fair, plenty of depth there at centre back. At left back though, we might need someone in behind Paulo Cesar. We've got Umaro Saidi, who is homegrown club and 18 years old, but not quite there yet. So maybe we're going to need to get a backup left back with that big transfer budget that we do have. As I said before, defensive midfielder, we're not too bad, especially with the likes of Talahovsky as well as Hamali, and behind the likes of Dever as well as Florentino Luis. A lot of depth there in that boring midfield position. Central midfield isn't quite as strong. Christian Fernandez is our option there, and behind the aging Orsnes, and he doesn't have too much potential, having been transfer listed back when Louis Enrique was in charge of the club. So we'll see if we can upgrade on him, especially if we can get someone a bit better for around that value of 7.4 million going forward there to central attacking midfield. As I said, pretty good here with Karamori and Haraldson, but also Abelai Fernandez is there, a quite promising homegrown club player, as well as Modi Burfa. So I think centrally up front, we're not looking too bad there. And behind our striker at right wing, we've got Matsoso, a homegrown nation South African right winger. He doesn't look too bad there. So I think that's someone that we might keep right winger, might not get touched too much. Also got Petrodo, who is homegrown club and looks pretty handy as well. So pretty happy with our right wing options, unless we do lose Anholo there with AC Milan interested in him going over to left wing. Noah Lang, as I mentioned, not looking too hot star rating wise. So maybe Lang's someone that we can get rid of. To be fair, Nicolas Martinez in behind that isn't too bad though, but probably an area where we could use a better backup there in behind Victor Hugo. And going forward to up front, we've caught up from our B team here, a player in Cosmas Polychronides, and he actually looks a bit better than the homegrown club lad. And Grace Kabangu, you can see there is finishing, it's quite good. The star rating isn't too hot, but he looks quite handy attribute-wise. So he might actually be the backup there and behind Piskunov, and Kabangu can do a job as well. So the squad depth here actually is not too bad. A couple of areas that maybe need some extra depth, especially down our left-hand side, but apart from that, the squad does not look too bad. But obviously, with that big transfer budget we do have, it would be a bit silly to not try and spend it, despite the fact that financially, this club is in the mud a little bit. As you can see, a little bit concerned about that now. Yeah, maybe we should have looked there a little bit more before we made the jump from Jahn Regensburg with their £40 million on the right side of things. So £100 million difference there between the bank balances between the two clubs. But we've got near 80 million to spend here. We only have 13 million at Jahn Regensburg. And to be fair, one way that we could sort out that balance here at Benfica, if we go over to our squad again and check out all the players, there are so many here at Benfica that we can try and get rid of. Seriously, this page is freaking massive. Let's just show here how many players we have overall at the club. Give me a second to make my way back down here and show you all the players we've got here in amongst our B team, our under 23s and our under 19s. 130 players. We definitely don't need that many. So definitely got a lot of players here that we can sell before the start of the season. So fingers crossed we can sort that out, and that should mean we're paying a lot less wages, because we certainly don't need that many fellas here at this club. So that's a bit ridiculous. That might be why they're in the mud financially as much as they are, but hopefully that might top up our transfer budget even more, and we can do some damage there down that left-hand side, as well as probably in central midfield, with Orsnes getting on and being wanted by a couple of Saudi clubs. But that will do it for today's episode. Made the move from Jahn Regensburg here to Benfica. We'll come back tomorrow, run through the transfer window, which could be quite busy, obviously. With 130 players, we don't need all of them. Our first game in charge, a Champions League qualifier, so we might see if that's going to be interesting. Otherwise, we'll come back and take on for Millicao. But that transfer roundup, it could be quite big with the budget that we do have. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you think we've made the right move here and going from Jahn Regensburg to a actual title contender in Benfica. If you enjoyed it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well until tomorrow, where we'll do a transfer recap with that big budget that we have to spend, and also we'll play at least our first game of the season, might even be that Champions League qualifier. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.